Hello, BookTube. I had an actual real-world errand to do, a banking errand, no less. And it was just hovering out there, and the week is getting on, and the weekend is coming, and also what looks like a rather large amount of rain is coming. So I thought, just get it done, just get it out of the way, so do it today. So I went out into the real world, which is going to titillate and amuse the great number of you who have been and are continuing to poke the bear, to tease me about the awful experience that I had the last time I went out in the real world. I narrated that in breathless detail on this channel, and a number of you said, oh, Steve went out into the real world that we all have to live in every day, and someone looked at him funny, and now it's ruined his whole week. I assure you, you are being cavalier. The horrible experiences that I had on that particular morning were for the record books. Okay? But I had to go, so I went out anyway. I had to do it. I braced myself and went out anyway. I have to admit that every element behaved itself. I encountered only two insane people, where usually that's well into double digits after a few minutes. I encountered only two insane people. And I admit, the thick skin that you develop when you spend time out in the real world, I used to go out in the real world every day, for 10 hours every day. The thick skin that you develop, I admit that's gone with me. I don't have that anymore. So I admit, when I was walking down the sidewalk and some guy comes shuffling across the street, he's got his pajamas on and house slippers on, he's going to go to Dunkin' Donuts that way. He doesn't care what he looks like. He doesn't care what other people think. He's crazy. And when I was walking down the sidewalk, minding my own business, keeping my eyes right where they belong, when I see him out of the corner of my eye shuffling aimlessly across the street, he gets relatively close to me and stops and just stands there and looks at me, as crazy people sometimes do. And I admit, because my outside world skin is thin, I wanted to stop myself, look at him and say, what the hell are you looking at? Why do you think it's okay to stop and stare at somebody like this? Keep goddamn walking or I'll knock you unconscious and throw your body into traffic. I wanted to do that, but that is an overreaction. I realized that. That is an overreaction to someone whose outside tolerance has been lowered. And it turns out I didn't need it because everything was perfectly fine. I did my errand. The errand went off without a hitch, whereas the last time I did this exact same bank errand, it did not go off without a hitch at all. It required the intervention of a teller and then the intervention of her manager. And I had to say all kinds of things that I don't like to say. I know that I'm awful argumentative on this channel, but I don't like to be a quarrelsome old guy in public. But whether you're at a pharmacy or a big box store or a library or a bank, you don't get to ask just any question that you want. I'm as smart as you are, and I need to understand that there is a reason for the things you're asking. If you're just asking for the fun of it, well, then I'm going to tell you as politely as possible. Last time I did this banking errand, I was polite as possible. I'm going to tell you as polite as possible. You don't have any reason to know that. Let's get about my business, okay? Instead of you just being goddamn nosy. Let's get about my business. I can prove to you that I can conduct the business that I want to do, and that's all I need to do. This is not yet a police state. And you being hungry for that doesn't speak well of you. I didn't say any of that last time, and I didn't need to say any of it this time, because this time everything happened without a hitch. It just as smooth as could be. It was almost like I went in looking for trouble, and there was none. And since that went well, I felt that I deserved a trip to the Brattle. Now, I know what some of you Weisenheimers are saying. You're saying, well, if it had gone poorly, you'd have still felt like you deserved a trip to the Brattle. To which I say, zip it. Zip it good. Instead, I felt like I deserved a trip to the Brattle, which, for those of you who are new to this channel, is a used bookstore in downtown Boston that I love. I've been going there for well over a year, and they have 3 stories of used books that are constantly changing, but they also have a sale lot outside. Thousands of more books for sale for $1, $3, or $5. So you can't go broke in the sale lot. And it's not arranged in any way except by price. So not only are you not going to hurt your wallet, but you're going to have the browsing experience of a lifetime. It's just going to be wonderful. I had no sooner got to the sale lot. I got to the sale lot and I was zeroing in on Zach, who we've all seen on this channel. He was out there moving books around. He likes to keep active in the sale lot. And I was zeroing in on him with some sort of tedious anecdote. I don't remember what the story was, but it was long. I was zeroed in on him and I was ready to ruin his morning when suddenly I was approached by one of you. I was approached by someone who said, "Are you Steve Donahue?" Oh, it happens all the time now at the Brattle. I always joke about how, I say that I love to go to the Brattle, but don't expect that I live there. Don't expect to find me there when you go there on a random visit. And then people go there on a random visit, and there I am. So I'm my own worst enemy when it comes to dispelling those rumors. But that was wonderful. We took a picture in front of the Brattle sign. Then I told long, tedious anecdotes to Zach. And, of course, he and I talked about the upcoming Boston Antiquarian Book Fair. So Zach and I had a chance to talk about one of our favorite authors, James Joyce. And I shopped out in the lot, and also a little bit inside the shop, and I had a blast. I had an absolute blast. Honestly, it's not just the hunting for books, although I got a lot of books. And again, looking at this pile, I have no idea how I got it back here. I got it back here without any muscular help. I'm in the market for muscular help. I didn't have any muscular help. I got it back here. I don't know how I did, but it isn't just the books. As I've said many times, there's something about browsing out in that sale lot for me. All those books, all those titles, all those old memories, all those old friends and enemies, all those old bookish experiences, so many titles that I have written about, so many subjects that I've written about, so many books out there that I have read or that I have seen in a lifetime of looking at secondhand books. Just, I don't know what it is. It must sound actually in this crowd, it's not going to sound all that incomprehensible. To most people, it would sound incomprehensible. But that experience so reliably takes me out of myself that it has helped me at times when you would think it would be the last thing I'd want to do. I learned last week that pretty much expected when it comes to me that one of the only things that it won't help with is rage. I have a temper, and it tends to eradicate everything around it. So it isn't a surprise to me looking back that I could not enjoy myself when I went there, when I was really angry. But this morning, it was incredible. Just incredible. I mean, I loved seeing, all the friends that I have at the shop, and I always love meeting people that know me from this channel. If you're ever in that position, don't hesitate. Okay? Don't hesitate to come up and talk my ear off. Don't hesitate to do that. Remember, unlike everybody else on this platform, I am an extrovert. I am a normal person, in other words. I'm not an introvert. I'm not going to wilt and shy away to the nearest shadowy corner if you so much as look at me. I'm going to be happy to meet you. Happy to do that. But it was also, well, anyway, you get my point. And in addition to that, I got a huge number of books, so we're going to go through those. Somehow I got these back here. I have no idea how I did that, but the first one is it was an institution, and you're not going to be able to make any sense of it now, but everybody loved this book when it came out. This came out in 1897, and I have got copies of this book before. I've had copies of this book before, but I knew there was one out there. I knew there was a copy out there that I wanted. A copy that was illustrated by Harold Brett, who is an illustrator from the 20th century that I really like. Very early 20th century, 19th century. I knew there was an edition out there like that, and I thought, well, it's probably intensely collectible. The Brattle has a collectible floor on the third floor. I never go up there at all, except to have a quiet place to interview people, but I don't go up there to shop. And right there out in the sale lot, there it was. This is Thomas Bailey Aldrich. And this is his book, The Story of a Bad Boy, with the cover and the illustrations that I wanted. They're about to fight. Every time that I see this book, this got reprinted a million times. Everybody loved it. And every time I see it, it seems to be a knockoff edition that isn't what I want. This is not in the best of condition, but I don't expect to find a better condition copy that is the one I want. So I grabbed it. And I will have a joy rereading this and putting it on the shelf Thomas Bailey Aldrich was I say he wasn't born in Boston, but nobody's perfect. He's buried here, and he was a literary poobah in the city. He was editor of the Atlantic for a long time, editor of other magazines. He was a literary man about town. Wrote tremendously genial books, also tremendously genial poetry. All of that's forgotten. None of that will ever be back. None of that will ever be reprinted. And Stephen Greenslet wrote a great biography of him, the only biography of him, and also his wife wrote a book of her own called Crowding Memories. And over the years, at the Brattle, I have found those books. They are over there on the New England shelf, and they are perfect Steve books. These musty old things that have a thousand universes of bursting life inside them, but nobody knows that anymore. Nobody knows that anymore. There is the great book, the conversation setting, paradigm resetting history of Boston when it was the hub of the universe, Boston in the 19th century, has never been written. Shards of it here and there, Boston shipping or Boston politics or Boston arts. I mean the whole thing. That has never been written. And Thomas Bailey Aldrich would be a light in there. And when I saw those two books, the Greenslet's biography and his wife's book, I grabbed them and read them and loved them. But they are pure Steve books. And I guess so is this. I'm not sure that this would have attracted anyone else's attention. But now I have unbelievably, his most famous book in the edition that I want. So that's wonderful. I don't know how I'm going to manage things here, because I would ordinarily put books right next to me. But someone is right next to me already. So I'm going to have to find homes for these things otherwise than that. How are we going to do this? Okay, I got only 2 pieces of fiction today. So all the rest of the stuff is very heavy nonfiction. And buried in this Brattle's sale hall is a book I didn't get at the Brattle, a new release. And I'm cleverly not going to tell you which one it is. You're going to have to guess on your own. You'll never guess. But I did find a novel. I think this is the thinnest thing that I found. This is The Visiting Professor by Robert Littell. I confess, I kind of was struck by the appearance of it, although I have read this author. Have I not? Well, I maybe this book is too early for me to... No, okay, The Once and Future Spy. I read The Once and Future Spy, and I think I read Mother Russia as well. But this is just a slim novel from the 1990s about a visiting professor who's coming from London or from Russia. So I grabbed it on a whim. That's the nice thing about the sale lot, is that everything is so cheap out there that you can grab it on a whim. You don't have to have an abiding desire. You can take a chance on it. Some of you will be old enough to remember when retail bookstores were that way. When you could walk into a retail bookstore and take a chance on a book. When it didn't cost $40. But anyway. Okay. There are a couple of instances here where the Brattle really, really provided. Where it gave me something that I very much needed and didn't have. Like this next one, which I have in a battered trade paperback that really is not strong enough. And I have had hardcovers of this before. I always managed to get rid of them. And then there it was. This is Sebastian de Gracia, and this is his book, Machiavelli in Hell. In a hardcover that somebody had already put a plastic covering on. Incredible. This is... I'm going to be able to retire my trade paperback, which is great. I'll take all the clippings that are in it and put it in here. This is a biography of Machiavelli. It is definitely that. But it is so much more than that. It is so, at times, surreally more than that. It's a wild fantasia on biography. It is as different from, I'm sure that you have seen in bookstores or in your library, a traditional Foursquare biography of Machiavelli. And this is not that. This is not that at all. I love it. It's hard to explain it, but I love it. I absolutely love it. I go back to it all the time. And now I finally have a hardcover of it. That's fantastic. And that's not the only example. I found there were a couple of examples of that this time around. What else have we got here? Okay, last time I was at the Brattle, and I was having that rotten day, and I was having everybody was picking on me, and you were all picking on me because I'm this quarrelsome old man who doesn't know what the outside world is like anymore. I worked in the outside world, okay, for a quarter of a century. And I didn't just work in the outside world. I worked in retail in the outside world. But I've just lost the knack of it. That's all. I'm not out in it all day long anymore. Anyway, as a bomb, as a bomb? Bring a bomb around a baby? To soothe myself on that morning, I bought a copy of Harold Nicolson's diaries covering the war, World War II, 1939 to 1945. I remembered loving the volume. I remembered thinking, I love his voice, his narrative voice, and this will be just what I need. And, I put it on the nightstand that night, and I have been living with that book ever since. I was absolutely right. I owe Harold Nicolson so much for saving my day, for saving the next few days. And that's a perfect example of why everyone should write. Because Harold Nicolson doesn't know that I exist. I hadn't yet existed when he wrote these things. He had no way of knowing. He put these things out into the world, or at least partially planned to. His letters and diaries, he must have known they were going to be collected. Certainly his son, who did such a masterful job editing that volume, must have known that he was putting it out into the world, and I benefited from it. But I'm still working in that book. I'm not done with it yet. It's still on the nightstand. But I was thinking, you really ought to just get the rest of Harold Nicolson when you see it, because you just like him on the page. And something about 2025 has really reminded me or convinced me that is a good enough reason. If you like somebody on the page, that's a good enough reason to have them and to keep going back to them. So I overindulged. The one big overindulgence was his biography of King George V. And it's a big overindulgence because it doesn't have a dust jacket. And sooner or later, I would find this with a dust jacket. But I really, really enjoy this. I had it once upon a time, and I think what I'll do is just make a dust jacket for it. That's not going to be too hard to do. I think I'll just do that. And that way I can find an illustration of George V and put it on the front there and whatnot. But I'm a sucker for royal biographies anyway. The House of Windsor, I absolutely love. And George V, of course, is... well, I got Harold Nicolson's Life of George V, which I admit, more for Harold Nicolson than I did for George V, who I don't particularly like as a historical figure. But Nicolson is so good to read. And then to complete the picture, out in the sale lot, I got the other volumes of his letters and diaries, where his son, Nigel, pulls together letters and diaries, arranges them in chronological order, heavily footnotes them, but unobtrusively. It's a beautiful job of curation. And these are the other two volumes. So this is before the war, and then the later years. And that's fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic. I don't know why I've let these things go. I know that I like this author. I guess I just needed that bell to ring. And now that that bell has gone off, I now have these volumes to just live in and revisit, and that's great. That's absolutely fantastic. These are probably Little Book Room books, but the Little Book Room, the bookshelves here just in general may be undergoing a massive rearrangement. Massive. I talk about having no room for physical print and paper books. I talk about having far too many print and paper books. But I also have 4, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 empty bookcases here that are not full merely because the organization of where they go has not been settled. But that settling might be coming. But it doesn't matter. I will find the room for these. I will also reread them. I don't think I've ever read the earlier volume. I know I've read the later years. But I don't think I've ever read the ones from 30 to 39. So I'll read them in addition to having them to revisit. Okay, then we have the other novel, the other piece of fiction for today, which I haven't double-checked on this one, but I believe this is also the Brattle coming through with a copy that I really needed, because I'm pretty sure my old copy is falling apart. This is by H.F. Saint, and it is the Memoirs of an Invisible Man in the hardcover edition. The mass-market paperback, if you can ever find it, is really clever because it's got a sheen to it, so that when you look at the cover of the mass-market paperback, at one angle, you can kind of see yourself, and then if you tip it even a little, you vanish, which is kind of clever. But this is the story of a man who goes to a scientific exhibition that goes awry, there's a flash, there's an explosion, and when he wakes up, he is invisible. He can't turn it on and off. He's just invisible. And that presents him right away with a huge number of practical problems. H.F. Saint's genius here is not to make his main character the main character from H.G. Wells' Invisible Man, who is an outcast and a weirdo and a whiner anyway. Instead, his character is a normal person who didn't want to be turned invisible, and who then has to figure out, well, how do I drive back to the city on the highway in broad daylight when people are going to see no one at the wheel? How do I get into my building? How do I order food? How do I do anything? And of course, because it was a federally funded scientific experiment, the federal government soon realizes someone was here who was not accounted for and may be invisible, and we need to find that person and do whatever, dissect. So there's actually a state-by-state chase scene that builds in tempo as this book goes on. It's just an amazing novel. Just an amazing, fun novel. And now I have a hardcover of it, which is good. That's very good. Okay, then we have, let me see the author here. This is, okay, no snickering. His name is Thomas Caldecott Chubb. He was a scholar. You wouldn't snicker at that face, would you? And he wrote a big book, Dante and His World. This is amazingly good. It's amazingly good. And I have waited. I have seen this in crappy condition. I have seen this without a dust jacket. I have got Took's book on Dante and a couple of other books on Dante, but I have been waiting. I knew this would be out there. This is the kind of the big, broad, popular biography of Dante that becomes a benchmark for everybody. And only gradually, only once in a while does this benchmark get replaced with another benchmark. Like, for instance, at the Brattle, I didn't get it, but at the Brattle there was the last big, fat, one-volume benchmark biography of Charles de Gaulle. Before Julian Jackson's book, A Certain Idea of France, came out, 20 years before that, there was a big book on de Gaulle and the France he saved. And that was there at the Brattle. I almost got it, but then I thought, how much de Gaulle do I really want to read? Because if you find the benchmark, the definitive biography of someone, it's worth having more than one, I think. But I waited, and this Dante volume did eventually appear, and it also has a plastic covering on it, so you can't beat that. Then we have Ed Watts. Not my Ed Watts. I don't know if my Ed Watts is alive. I don't know if he's watching. But this is not my Ed Watts, because that would be visible. This Ed Watts is a baby. But this is his book, The Romans. A gigantic history that's new from basic books of Rome, from Romulus and Remus all the way to the fall of the Empire in the East. Just a great, big, sweeping thing that comes out in November, I think. Oh, no, this comes out in October. I believe this comes out this month. It is mentioned in your Big Canoe forthcoming October books release. Big Canoe newspaper has a expanded column of new releases for the fall season, and The Romans is glowingly mentioned in there. I will be writing a review of it. Great to have a finished copy of it. That's just fantastic. Okay, then we have the legendary Foreign Office fixture, Alexander Cadogan, who was at the Foreign Office forever and ever. He was almost an auxiliary brain, source of calm wisdom all through the war years. Harold Nicolson knew him. Everybody knew him in Britain during the war years. And he kept a diary the whole time. And it was made into a book. And I saw that the last time I was there. This thing, The Diaries of Sir Alexander Cadogan. Roughly the same years as Harold Nicolson, and covering everything. This is very mildly expurgated, but otherwise, no. And it's a great, big, hefty thing. I saw that out in the sale lot, but I remembered having a negative impression of the long snippets of the Cadogan Diary that I've read in the past. I remember not particularly liking either his presence on the page or his tone or what he noticed and didn't notice. So I saw it last time I was there and just ignored it. I left it behind, which you must never do. I must never do that. There's nothing worse than sale lot regret. And also, I was naturally curious to know if David Murphy had a copy of this, since he's our World War II guy. It must have come across this in 80 million bibliographies. You can't avoid it. It and Nicolson are such unbelievably invaluable primary sources of people who are actually there day to day and keeping a diary, a contemporaneous diary. So I was kicking myself about that, and I was thinking, well, you've got this banking errand to do out in the real world. So when you have to do that, you will go to the Brattle, and if it's still out there, you will grab it. And what are the chances? David would grab this if he saw it. I thought I would have grabbed it if I saw it, but most people probably wouldn't. So I thought, all right, it'll be there, and it was. Again, with a plastic covering on it. So I got it, but I was feeling a little melancholy because I was thinking, well, that's great. I can put it on. David has a pile of books here that need to be mailed. Someone needs to mail them. I thought, well, that's great. You can put that on his pile, but you'd kind of like to give it a second try yourself, especially since Harold Nicolson has put you in the mood. And I don't mean to rub this in for any of you who live in a used book desert, but fortunately, the sale lot provided a second copy, so I was able to get two of these, one for David and one for myself. It's a great shop. What can I say? And then one of you found a book at, I think, a library sale and sent me a picture. A lot of you do that. A lot of you don't, because it's so much trouble. You have to get the Polaroid. You have to get the film developed. You have to wait and wait for your envelope to come back, and then pay for it at the pharmacy and bring it back home, and then you've got pictures, and then you go to the Photoshop to get them to duplicate the pictures. It's not like you have a palm-sized phone on your person at all times to send me pictures of everything. No, it's not like that. Some of you have begun to inundate me with pictures, and one person sent me a picture of a library find, and I asked, is it worth it? And I said, yes, it's very much worth it. It's a great biography. It is actually one of those linchpin biographies. So when I saw it at the Brattle today, this is Donald Howard. We've heard of him in connection with Chaucer just recently. His big fat biography of Chaucer. When I saw this, I grabbed it because it's been way too long since I read this thing. So I'll be happy to do it. Fantastic. I love Chaucer, so having more than a couple of biographies of him is fine by me. And then another example, probably the greatest example today, of the Brattle providing. Because I had this thing when it originally came out, and I got rid of it. No idea why. And the next time I checked for it, it was commanding exorbitant prices online. I don't know if that's still true. I can't imagine there's any interest. But nevertheless, I didn't have it, and the few times that I saw it in trade paperback, which really doesn't work for me. But then today I found the Landmark Thucydides in hardcover. So that's great. I think I have a battered trade paperback in the room, and I can now get rid of it. Because these are great. These Bob Strassler books are great. You get the text of whatever the text is, and you also get tons and tons of maps and notes, and also appendices in the back on every subject connected with the work. All original writing, all original scholarship. The Landmark Thucydides is not an original translation. This is the Crawley translation, with an introduction by Victor Davis Hanson. Well, this came out before Victor Davis Hanson knew that he was a fascist. So his introduction might be worth reading. This came out in 1996, when I doubt he thought that he was a fascist. Because in 1996, everyone understood that to be a fascist was a bad thing to be. So his introduction is probably worth reading. I probably won't read it. I probably wouldn't be able to read it, in considering the spleen I have. But I believe that every other Landmark volume that comes out after this one has a newly commissioned translation. This one just chose an old one and lavished it with care. I remember when this came out, I remember thinking, wow, what an odd venture. And it has continued. And I believe I now have all of these in hardcover. It's just, I don't see this very often. So I was happy to see it. And there you go. And you can't expect a Steve period, because I don't know if you noticed, but every one of these books is huge. I don't know how I got them back here. But I did. And that was my Brattle trip for today. And it was just what the doctor ordered. And when it was over, the outside world behaved itself also with me coming back here. The outside world has continued to behave itself. So, fingers crossed that continues. That is it. A lot of these things are of enormous interest to me, but first I've got real world work to do. Before I take a bath in any of these things, start glomming around and looking at all of them, I need to do some real world work, some paid writing. And then when that's done, I'll use these as a reward. So anyway, the only fiddling around with these that I'm going to do is I'm going to take one copy of this and pop it on David's pile. But otherwise, all the rest of these things are here and just need to be inventoried and glommed over. But in the meantime, I'm going to wrap this up. I had a wonderful time. I'm sorry, all you Weisenheimers, I don't have any new outrage anecdotes about how horrible the outside world is. But I'm sure I will next time. So I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.